It's setting up the webinar for you two. Hold on one second. Okay, we're live on YouTube.
Okay.
And it's muted. It was already logged in from when I did it with Casey, so that's good.
Perfect.
We're not recording yet.
That's fine. We have to get a quorum before we can call the meeting to order anyway, so.
Those are general public.
We have to get a quorum before we can call the meeting to order anyway, so.
Scarlett just
Okay, the YouTube is working, so.
Hold on, Scarlett emailed me.
I've never been on Facebook and you're limited to go on a couple of times, but I've found it's sent out the top of the mail.
So John, I just emailed, he just emailed me only asking for a link. So I just emailed it to her.
Okay.
I'm hoping you'll probably have.
And we did confirm with Phil, so I know he.
Phil and Liz. I'll email them both.
Okay. Got Phil's cell. I can give him a call.
Okay.
Well, I can see YouTube is up here in my screen.
Yep.
If you're asking about it.
Yep.
I see 7 participants.
Got a few attendees so far.
David Becker, Ann Millet, and Larry Prophet.
Mhm. I'm gonna try giving Phil a call on his cell, see if he's coming on board.
Yeah, we're short 1 or 2.
We'll get started in a few moments. A little technical issues going on.
Oh, here's okay.
I really like the 4 units. So the hard to find.
Let me rename Commissioner Kier to not me.
Everything's no pain.
Yep, we were just waiting for a quorum.
And we have it.
Okay, so we have, welcome Commissioner Fox. Thank you for joining. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I
Maybe
can.
I'm mute.
Thank you.
Okay, just talked to Phil. He's logging in right now. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm?
Talking very slowly.
It was so good. This one. Gonna hurt my back.
So
I might-
one of the planning commissioners is about to log on and then we'll get going, okay?
Since you don't have a name tag, will they introduce themselves?
Yes.
The commissioners, the planning commissioners?
We can do that. But you will, most of the planning commissioners are gonna be on the screen. I don't know what you can see from over there.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have 3, we still haven't made it. Cutler might be showing up as an editor, so. This new hybrid world, right? We could have. Yeah. Here. On the commission. No, John O'Leary? Yeah, no, he's staff. Yeah, that's what I thought. So he's on the upper left hand side, right, and but he's gonna be lead the. Because he's done most of the staff. So he'll be giving the presentation. He's over in our office, so we've got. Technologies. Yeah. Stuff I dimly understand. At least not well enough. Tracy, of course, when you get ready to talk and others, I will be moving later on when people come up to testify. I will be getting out of this chair. She'll be staying there, so that'll be. If you want to come up and say stuff.
Thanks.
Do you want to introduce yourself while we're waiting?
They know what. Yeah, I'm Anno Husing. I'm the director of the Lincoln County Planning Department. This is Megan Hahn.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for being here today. You are here for oral testimony. Madam Chair will direct you to the appropriate time to do so. So in the meantime, just sit back and watch the proceedings. We're waiting for one more planning commissioner to log on, and then the chair will start the meeting officially. So thank you for your patience. We're still working out the hybrid stuff.
Are there gonna be graphics? So, should we move over here so we can?
There's nothing, the only, the applicant's attorney will be presenting something over here, so if you want to see it, you might want to move over here. Unfortunately, I can't move the TV, so, because we're trying to get all of the planning commissioners on one screen. Half are online, half are in person.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and start. I'm gonna have faith in Phil. Because I have a lot of things to read and he knows all about these kinds of things. So.
Madam Chair, if you could, Megan, can you go ahead and hit record if we're going to start?
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me.
Yep.
Oh, Phil.
Phil's on now.
Good timing.
Perfect. All right. Well, welcome one and all to the December 5th, 2022 Lincoln County Planning Commission meeting. At this time, let's call the roll.
Madam Chair,
Here.
Commissioner Lambert. Here. Commissioner Skolnick,
Here.
Commissioner Bugenhagen.
Good evening, I'm here.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox.
I am here.
Thank you, Commissioner Kier.
I'm here.
Excellent, and Commissioner Cutler is not present.
Thank you. He may show up. We will note that. Okay, before we get to the main event, at this time, are there any items not on the agenda that anyone came to discuss this evening?
I don't believe so, Madam Chair.
Great. Okay, tonight we're holding a live hybrid in-person and electronic public hearing on case file 02 ZC PC 22 to consider a request by Michael Wilson for a zone change of the Olalla Golf Course from PF, that's public facilities, to RR5 rural residential on 2 tax lots totaling 55.11 acres. Comprehensive plan designation for the subject property is dispersed residential. The applicant is requesting that the zoning be changed from public facilities PF to rural residential RR5. The following criteria from chapter 1 of the Lincoln County Code are applicable to this request. Section 1.1235 quasi judicial amendments. Section 1.0190 Section 3, plan designations, dispersed residential. Section 1.1355, rural residential zone, RR5, and section 1.1377, public facility zone, PF. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards those criteria just described or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation, which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to LUBA based on that issue. At this time, any planning commissioners wish to disclose any ex parte communications they may have had or any bias or conflicts of interest they may have regarding the application. No one on the screen. Okay, I just wanted to state that I had just visited this property prior knowledge of this hearing. I belong to a group that's storing some items in the storehouse for Altrusa. It's the only time I've ever been there. And also I know many of the people who wrote in opposition letters to this. So, but neither of those things would preclude me from making a fair and just decision on this matter. Are there, and there's no other, okay. Right. At this time, can the staff give me a report on all the correspondence we've received so far regarding this? Is that going to be
John will
John,
present, and I'm just
thank
gonna change it to speaker view so that he is on screen. Go ahead, John.
Sure. To date, we have received, I'm sorry, bear with me. One letter of support of the zone change, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters opposing the proposed application to change the zoning. And then we've also received some supplemental information from the applicant regarding the application, addressing some of the comments that were raised in opposition. So.
And all the commissioners should have received all that and read that at this point in time. Okay, at this time, let's have the staff report. Is that also John? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this application is, as you've been made aware, and as you noted in the application materials, a request to change the zoning from PF to rural residential 5. There's no change in the underlying plan designation. It's still dispersed rent residential. The applicant has made their application facts available in the narrative. I think you've all had that material available to the surrounding uses immediately adjacent to the property or rural residential 5. Topography is flat. It's a fairly flat piece of property. It's got some water course going through it, some wetlands, and an unstudied floodplain. Actually, I think it is studied. Yeah, there's actually a studied floodplain going through the property. So it's got some developmental hazards associated with it. The primary issue in terms of a zone change is, has there been a change in the nature of the property or surrounding conditions, change in the character, and other cases, an error in zoning or something else along those lines. In this case, the applicant asserts that there has been a change in the characteristic of the property. This property has been operated as a golf course for many years, several decades. The property was zoned PF because of the existing golf course at the time. The underlying zoning public facilities in this case is applied to a piece of private property where you would typically find PF applied to public property, but it is what it is. The applicant asserts that because the nature of the golf course business has changed, they can no longer operate this golf course as a viable business, that they would like to change the zoning to rural residential 5. This initially has to do with the dwelling that's on the property, or what is a clubhouse at the time or at the moment, that they intend to convert to a dwelling after they've changed the zoning, which is the only way they can convert it to a dwelling, is to change the underlying zoning. Beyond that, the applicants made the assertions that the nature's changed. It's up to the planning commission to determine, I'll make findings and make a determination based on the application in front of you. I mentioned the development constraints. There is water, there is power, septic is generally available to the property. Transportation of infrastructure exists. There isn't going to be any significant increase in demand on transportation infrastructure associated with the proposed change in zoning. The analysis of the application to date is that the character of the property, the surrounding uses, character of the property specifically is relevant, and that there is no particular hindrance to a zone change. There's no technical reason why the zone can't be changed based on the request. I think at this point, I'm just going to ask, does the planning commission have any questions? Are there any concerns about the application of the staff report? And are there any questions about the letters of opposition that have been received or any of the correspondence received to date?
Okay, with this hybrid mode, commissioners that are zoomed in, you'll have to unmute yourself and let me know if you have any questions for staff. If you have any. Not right yet. Okay, so while the others are contemplating, John, of course, I always have questions. The zoning public facility doesn't mean it's public property, correct?
Correct.
It's,
This is a little unique. There is, I don't know if there's any other property like this in Lincoln County. Typically where you find public facility zoning, you find it laid over the top of publicly owned property. It's usually belongs to a state agency or some other governmental entity. It's private property. So yes, it's PF zoned. And we can talk about what PF zoning does or does not allow or how it restricts the uses. But typically and usually what you find with PF zoning is almost everything that doesn't exist today requires some land use permit, some conditional use permit to move forward or to, to initiate the use. Which is kind of consistent because what you typically find with PF zoning is the use already existed at the time the zoning was established. It was either a park or school or something like that. So in this case, it was a golf course. It got zoned PF. Really, the only way to change it to anything else is through either a conditional use permit process that conforms to the PF zone or to change the zoning. So does that answer your question, Commissioner?
yeah.
Or
and you can have a golf course. You is that the only way you can have a golf course, or can you have a golf course on R5 property?
So rural residential 5 zoning does allow golf courses as a conditional use. It is, it's there. It's along with the other uses that are allowed in rural residential 5. So yes.
No questions from anyone online. Okay. So we'll now be taking testimony. We start off first with proponents, and then we move on to if there are any opponents. Applicant, right? The applicant. Please.
Applicant first and then
Right.
proponents.
Right. Please note that I may limit the time for testimony, and if there's a time limitation, I will announce it. And if you do have some testimony, you might want to, if you agree with something, you can come up and just say that without actually repeating it all, but we will get to that in a moment. Okay, this time we'll have the applicants.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to all the commissioners. Megan's going to pull up a sort of presentation that I put together to guide our discussion. My name is
Hi.
Madam Chair, Ryan Gardner, I'm Assistant County Counsel. I just want to make sure there was a admonishment given about making sure every issue was raised during testimony, or it'll be excluded. It could be excluded or we will appeal.
Right, I did that at the very beginning with different.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, and welcome. This is the first time.
Sorry about
That's okay. Thank you. Good to be clear.
So my name is Tracy McDowell. I am a local attorney and I represent the applicant.
Oh.
And so with that, we will get started.
Okay, John, can you see my screen?
Yes,
And can
Yes.
you hear Tracy okay?
yes, I can.
And I've been told that my clicks kind of lag online, so I'll click and then wait a second before I speak, so just so you guys know why I'm not. That helps. Okay, a block, brick wall. So as has been explained, the proposed change is a zone change to approximately 55.11 acres of land from the public facility zone to rural residential RR5. The biggest difference between these changes is that the residential use of the property will become a permitted use, whereas right now it's completely prohibited. As you compare the two portions of the code that apply to public facilities and RR5, which I did in my submittal today, you will see that many of the uses remain available. They may change a little bit, or it might be a similar use, but there's not a significant change other than residential becomes allowed. So as Mr. O'Leary said, rarely if ever is a public facility zone applied to privately owned land. And to understand how we got there now, I think that we have to understand the history of the subject property. So the PF zone was assigned to the subject property in 1980. At the same time, it was designated under the comprehensive plan as dispersed residential. At that time, the county did intend to zone the land as RR5, which is being sought with this application. The decision was appealed to LUBA by the then property owners with 3 assignments of error. LUBA remanded on 1 assignment of error, meaning they dismissed the other 2, but they said, yeah, this 1 assignment makes sense to us. We need more. So the county had to provide some protection of the recreational use of the site beyond the residential zoning. And so that if a change in the use of the property was sought, there would be a required review process, like the one we're engaging in now. That is how the county decided to zone this property public facility. It was currently being used as a golf course, and public facilities was the only zone that allowed for the recreational use of the property, but also provided for a review process if that use was to be changed. The LUBA decision did not state the property was not or never could be zoned as residential. In fact, LUBA pointed to the definition of dispersed residential under the Lincoln County Code, indicating that in the future, the property could be zoned residential if the property owner at that time sought that use and engaged in the review process. This property is a perfect example of dispersed residential land, with the area having a historic land pattern of low density settlement with few, if any, public services and facilities outside of the natural resource areas of agriculture and forest. With that, the county has an incongruency between the zone, which is currently public facilities, and the comprehensive plan designation of dispersed residential. That can be fixed with this zone change from public facilities to RR5. So here, I just kind of outline what does the public facility zone do? It basically focuses on public use of the land this zone is applied to, and sometimes this zone is applied to privately owned land when there's a connection between the public services and the private land ownership. In this case, there are no public services being offered to the community. And at no time have the services offered from this land been publicly owned. It's always been a private service held open to the public. And so for rural residential, you see that it allows the same or similar uses as the public facility zone, but also permits residential use, farm and forest use, and other uses that better fit the subject property and broaden the availability of use to the property owner without taking anything away. I think of serious and notable consideration is the permitted residential use in the RR5 zone. During a time where we can all agree, I think there's a significant housing shortage. So moving into the property details, the application applies to 2 tax lots. And the clubhouse, which is here, sits on the larger of the 2 tax lots. And then this is just an aerial view of the property. The map shows here, the tax lot map shows there's 1 tax lot here, and then the other tax lot is here. And the clubhouse sits like right here, I believe. So when we're talking about public facilities versus RR5 zone, oh, one other thing I wanted to note here, and maybe you guys care, maybe you don't. But I wanted to make sure that you guys noted in my submission today, clarified in the application, I had said that there's no creeks or wetlands or anything of that nature, and I was mistaken. That was an error that I hope to fix in my submission today and here giving testimony. Is there is a creek that runs through the entirety of the property almost, and then some wetlands, I believe, are right over here designated. And I think that staff included some maps on that for you to review. So when we're talking about changing a zone, one of the considerations is what allows you to do that. One of those things is a substantial change in character. And as I noted, the golf course is closed. It closed before the current property owner took possession of the property. And then the second part of that significant change in the area is the residential development that has occurred. Those are really the two things, is the closure of the golf course and the residential development have created significant changes in the character since the current zone was adopted, and both of those warrant the change in the zone as sought by this application. Additionally, the location of the subject property is remote. There's no public transportation providing access to the property. It is difficult to get to and is certainly out of the way, not centrally located to the county or city within. As everyone in the room is aware, there's a significant housing crisis in Lincoln County and beyond. The proposed change is one step toward helping that situation. I don't think I need to go into further detail about the housing crisis, but I would like to point out that on June 21st, 2019, the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners adopted a housing strategy plan. That plan discusses many items, but of relevance here is that the county is expected to grow by 50,000 residents by 2067, which was 50 years from the time the plan was put together. The growth that we're going to see, or that is projected, is going to negatively impact the housing crisis. And this proposed zone change is one way you can help stem that negative impact. A number of the letters you received noted concerns about losing recreational opportunities in the county. Upon review, I was able to learn that there are 4 other golf courses in Lincoln County: Salishan, Chinook Winds, Crestview, and Agate Beach. Additional comments indicated concern about cross-country and trails. A quick search yielded amazing results for other options, including the Mike Miller Trail, Drift Creek, Olalla Hiking Trail, the Corvallis to Sea Trail, Forest Park and Wilder, and many, many more. Other recreational activities within the county include, of course, the beach, the Newport Recreation Center, Toledo Swimming Pool, disc golf in South Beach, and several more options. The thing is, the recreational use of the property, the golf course, has already ended. And the property owner does not have to open the property to the public for any use, regardless of the zone, if they don't want to. As I already discussed, the comprehensive plan designates the subject property as dispersed residential. When there is an incongruency between zoning and comprehensive plan designations, the comprehensive plan should govern when faced with fixing that incongruency. Here, a change to RR5 in the zoning fixes the incongruency without having to amend the comprehensive plan. Finally, on this point, the property is and always has been under private ownership. While previous property owners may have chosen to operate a business on the subject property, which required them to hold the property open to the public, the property has never been public land. It has never been a public facility even. It is not like Central Park, which is owned by New York City. This is a privately owned piece of property. It has only been open to the public due to the previous property owner's intentional decision to make it so, which has never been a requirement of the property owner. The criteria for you to consider today when making a recommendation on this application is fairly simple as outlined on the slide. The financial feasibility of any given business venture is not relevant. What future development may or may not look like is not relevant beyond what is allowed in one zone versus the other. Septic considerations, water rights, impact studies, none of that is relevant to the application before you. Only what is stated here. I encourage you to recommend approval of this application to the Board of Commissioners by finding that the proposed zone change from public facilities to RR5 is in accordance with the Lincoln County Comprehensive Plan and statewide goals, and that there has been a substantial change in the character of the area since zoning was adopted and which warrants changing the zone, and that the review process required by the Land Use Board of Appeals in Gruber versus Lincoln County, LUBA 80-088, has been complied with, as well as any other findings you deem relevant to make a recommendation in support of approving the application. Thank you.
Okay, let's see if there's any questions for you from the commissioners. Ms. Stevens, in fact, you here.
I was trying to remember, how many houses have been built on the property since the zone was around the property since the zone was changed, you know?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I was just referencing that as you said the property had significantly changed. I was trying to see what the significant change was.
Yes. Let me make a note of your question. Let me see. If I have that map available with me. I don't think I printed that, the particular map that would tell me that. I'm sorry. If the planning commission chooses to hold the record open, I'm happy to submit materials that give you that information.
Just looking at the map, though, that there is a residential island kind of this property surrounds, and the access though is easement. Is that correct? The
So
road.
I'm not certain right now the access to the subject property is off of Olalla Road. That would change according to the transportation department has noted in the staff report that they would, if the property was, use of the property was changed to residential, I believe Mr. Kenyon indicated that they would want access to the property to come off Fairview Drive, which intersects with Olalla Road, but it would be, we're talking a matter of maybe 100 feet on Fairview Road and then onto the subject property.
Okay, yeah, I was just that residential island, it looks like an island, it's not an island, but the road itself, Fairview, looks like it bisects
Uh-huh.
this subject property, but
You have maps.
yeah, it's
in
hard,
your
they're
packet.
small. I like the big maps that we used to get, but I'm pretty. But that's
Madam,
kind
Madam
of-
Chair, if I may,
Yeah,
just I wanted to offer up that, so you're referring to Olalla Acres. It's a small subdivision that was created 1977. It's centered in the subject parcel. There's it's called Fairway Drive. There's a
Yeah.
drive that was created that serves that development. To the best of my knowledge, I believe that's a private road. But my understanding is that regardless of the privacy of the road, it does provide access for the clubhouse on the property, and I think that is a legally established access. That said, I can just let you know that the access has been established for the clubhouse off of Fairway Drive, and to the best of our knowledge, there's no other issues utilizing Fairway Drive for access to that primary residence. I don't think, I just don't think that we should probably speculate on what future access may or may not be sought off of Fairway Drive for any future development purposes for the property, because the other relevant point here is that there's significant frontage along Olalla Road to the subject parcel. In other words, it has access opportunities off of the county road and other places. So I just wanted to bring that up.
right. It was more a curiosity of, there was some descriptions of easements and drain fields and those things would, with the zone change, that doesn't change anything, correct?
No, the zone change will not impact the existing easements, including the septic easements, by the way. There are septic easements. My understanding is there's septic easements from Olalla Acres to the would be the southeastern portion of the Olalla Golf Course property. The thing about the zone change is it does not affect any existing easements, right of ways, access agreements. All of those mechanisms, instruments are binding. So regardless of the zone change, those things will still be in place. Anything associated with use of the RR5 zone later on as a proposed land use will have to work around those instruments and those existing mechanisms. In other words, they're going to have to accommodate all the existing easements and other binding, encumbrances on the property. So,
Okay. Commissioners online, any questions for the applicant? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you very much. Are there any other people who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant? What was that? Anyone who would like to speak for the applicant and proponent of the project, if it's unchanged.
Please state your name for the record,
Okay.
please.
My name is Merritt Gruber Chris. And I am a bordering property owner, have lived as a neighbor to this property for over 40 years. And in fact, my parents built the golf course, and the family still owns the property around the golf course. So just to speak to your at least partially to your question about development. The family hasn't developed, but it is all zoned RR5, and it's not to say that it wouldn't, that wouldn't happen, but just as a family, it hasn't been done, there has been another adjacent area that has added, I think, 5 houses, and we recently sold another piece that is being developed into home sites too. So anyway, just to speak a little bit to that question, but I do want to just say that like so many of my neighbors that are here, I'm brokenhearted to see the golf course close. It's been a wonderful neighbor for us. But I also knew it was for sale. I know this isn't speaking directly to these points that we're supposed to speak to, but I just want to say, it's not that I didn't know it was closing as a golf course and that it would be for sale. And I know I chose not to buy it and keep it as a golf course. And I know that nobody else, others made that same decision. And I think it matches our R5 zoning matches perfectly with the rest of the surrounding property. And so I just want to speak in support of somebody who purchased a piece of property and wants to move forward with it. And so that is my piece for tonight. Thank you.
very much. Does anyone have any questions? No,
Okay.
okay. And just to clarify, we don't have a sign-in sheet for testimony. We do.
Not used to in-person meetings.
So if you do come up and speak, you need to state your name and address for the record, and you also need to write it down. Right.
Madam Chair, we'll also be, the next time we do this, we'll have a paper copy of the map up there as well. Point well taken.
Great.
You will.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the applicant? Okay, at this time, we're going to switch. And those who,
We have people online.
oh,
Um,
okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to pause you. I didn't know.
Thing, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have 3 attendees online. And I would like to unmute them to ask if they're a proponent or speaking in opposition to me, if they even want to
Okay,
chat.
let's pause for a moment and do this.
Okay, we're going to first allow to talk, Mr. David Becker. And I've asked them to unmute.
And Mr. Becker's a proponent.
We don't know
we
because
don't
they're
know
online
because-
participants, yeah.
So, Mr. Becker, if you can hear us, if you unmute and let us know if you would like to speak for the applicant or against the application.
They
Or you
haven't
just listening?
unmuted.
Is there a way they can raise their hand?
I'm not.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if they can, there's a little raise hand function on Zoom. Yeah, there you go.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Well, Mr. Becker, you've raised your hand. Is there any way you can unmute yourself?
Because we can't hear you.
And we have no control over that. That's muted on his side, so.
I don't think we can do it.
We can ask them to unmute, but we can't unmute them.
Okay. So we will try perhaps again, if you've undone his hand. Okay, so let's go on to the next one.
Well, if Mr. Becker figures out how to unmute himself, then right, we can return.
Correct.
To get his testimony then.
Okay.
Janae Millet.
Okay, Janae Millet, if you would unmute, you can let us know if you would like to speak.
We put in a written submission in opposition, so I don't have anything more to add.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And
We will ask Mr. Larry Prophet.
Mr. Prophet, Larry Prophet, if you unmute, you can let us know if you would like to speak. Hearing none. Okay,
I believe Mr. Prophet submitted written testimony as well. Is that,
Yeah, he's still muted, so
Right.
somebody
Yeah.
tap him on the shoulder, get him to unmute.
We are doing the virtual tapping on the shoulder.
Commissioner Bugenhagen, we haven't established that Mr. Prophet actually wants to speak tonight. He's submitted written testimony, so
I don't see that.
there, or is, am I confused?
No, yeah, he did not.
Did not, okay.
Yeah.
I
Some
stand
people
corrected.
might just want to attend
Right.
and not speak.
Are we-
Oh, there. Are you unmuted, Mr. Prophet? Yes.
You can speak right now.
Larry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Prophet. We're not able to hear anything. So even though you're unmuted, I think either your microphone's turned down or disconnected. So
Can we come back?
We can come back. Yeah, we can
Okay.
come back.
We'll
Mr.
do-
Prophet, we will come back to you while you sort out your audio.
just
Um,
raise your hand when you're ready, Mr. Prophet.
Perfect.
Great.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave them as is.
Okay.
And if they speak, then we can.
Okay, so at this time, now for our live audience, if you would like to come up and give testimony, please do so one at a time. Or you can do two at a time while one signs in and the other speaks, but make sure you sign in and state your name and address for the record.
And please talk into the microphone so everyone can.
Anyone like to come forward at this time? Come on up.
And I will move.
My name is Janet Runger and I live at 84 Olalla Place at Olalla Acres. And I just wanted to add one more thing in addition to the letter we already submitted, and I don't know, just my biggest concern is the aquifer. In that my house right now, I've had a study done with it and my well produces 2 cups per minute, and it should be doing 2 gallons per minute to have adequate water supply for us. So I'm afraid that if we take out all the water from all these other places, that it could have a real impact on how much water we all share. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna get our youngest member then. 5, never had a baby, it's so exciting. Hi. Come on in.
Good evening, my name is Joe Dietrich and I live at 10 Olalla Place. I'm also a resident of the Olalla Acres. I have submitted a lengthy testimony already, and so I welcome any questions regarding that. But just while I have a little bit of time here, I do want to sum up that my opposition falls into 4 categories, and one was that the application did not meet the criteria. Even listening to the applicant speak now, there still was not any evidence of a change that was substantial to the area around the said property. The closure of the golf course is for the golf course. It does not reflect any change outside that property. You probably see that change. And I also want to point out that there were several omissions within that application that I feel deemed the application not sufficient. That included missing the riparian corridor, which supported salmon. That included missing easements that were required to be included in the application, as well as the supplemental information that has now been provided as far as the wetland areas, etc. I also mentioned that there is a broader community use and loss that would occur if the zone change occurred because of the recreational opportunities that are available. And the applicant mentions the Luba case. And in that Luba case, as the applicant mentioned, that there was to be an additional review, and was the assertion of why the PF designation was in place, so that we could have a review of the recreational needs. In that Luba case, they even talked about an owner having the potential to carve out the property if it was zoned as rural residential 5 at their own whim. And so the question was, to me, whether this review is substantial enough to assess whether a loss of a recreational facility is something that is acceptable to the community. So we do have obviously a public hearing right now. There have been sites and notices delivered to properties adjacent to the property in question now. But this is a much larger, I think, community and county issue that maybe this notice didn't really deliver in terms of the amount of time and who actually knows about what effect this could have on those opportunities. And then also, the application is for the primary residence of the applicant. However, it seems like this is a much broader question about whether the entire property is going to be developed and potentially future carved up, as was mentioned in the Luba decision. And that does seem like there are other factors that should be included in considering whether this application is relevant and whether a zone change is relevant. And I urge the commission to consider that moving forward. Now, in terms of some of the items that were brought up, just as far as the applicant's testimony today, as well as questions that came up forward. I just want to mention that the public facility designation was also, or the PF was also how the Crestview Golf Course is currently zoned. So that does suggest that there is not just this one single incident of a golf course with this PF designation, but it is broader. In terms of the housing shortage that was put forward. If this truly is an application for one primary residence, why is the housing issue brought forward? I think this again points to the fact that this is a broader question of carving up this property into more housing sites. The applicant also mentioned that the property or the golf course was closed before the current owner took possession of the property. But as you see in some of my attachments, the property was operated as a golf course for almost 2 months after the current owner took possession, or at least the property was sold. So it was a functioning golf course up until the time that the owner took over. So it's not like it was a derelict property with rundown buildings. It was actually operating at the time. So again, whether this golf course was financially stable is still yet to be proved. The applicant also mentioned that this property is difficult to get to. It is located 1 mile off of Highway 20. This is not a 10-mile drive down a bumpy gravel road. This is highly accessible. They also mentioned some of the walking and the trails around the area, which is interesting to mention the Olalla hiking trail, which actually is closed to public use because the Weyerhaeuser company has bought that timber area, and you now require a permit that can cost thousands of dollars just to walk on that property. So we actually do have a shrinkage of recreational opportunities in this county due to private ownership, and I think that is something that is relevant to this case. I think with that, I will refer back to the remainder of my written testimony, and if anyone has any questions, I can address those.
Okay, and any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Dietrich? I think maybe this is for staff. This piece of property is private property, correct? Just because it has that word public facility doesn't mean that public have right-of-way access to it. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's correct. It is private property. What I can't speak to are any private party easements or anything that's been recorded or encumbered onto the property that staff hasn't been made aware of. But what staff knows is the property is in private ownership, and to the best of our knowledge, private property is just that. It could be secured by the property owner, and it's only as public as the property owner makes it. So just to be aware. And if I may, I just wanted to make one more comment. I just to clarify, there's a difference between policy and procedure. On noticing, there's maybe a public policy element that Mr. Dietrich brought up. But procedurally and in conformance to law, the noticing of a public hearing for zone change is spelled out. So there's a certain procedure notice, a very specific type of notice has to be sent out to a very specific radius of property owners within the subject property at a certain time frame. And so not discussing the procedural or the policy elements, procedure was followed correctly. Just want to make sure that we're clear that to the best of our knowledge, we did not err on the public noticing procedure. So just wanted to clarify, if Mr. Dietrich feels that we made an error on the public noticing, please let us know. But to the best of our knowledge, we did not. So.
Can I clarify that?
Yeah.
Oh, I completely agree that I think you did meet public notice for a zone change. I agree that I'm sure the timing, a lot of it was fine and the properties that were contacted were appropriate. I'm just going back to that original question as far as in that Luba case that was brought up and the idea of having a review of recreation, whether this procedural review is actually what was intended and necessary to debate or address a recreational use property and that loss to the community. So I in no way questioning whether this procedure was correct. I just want to say whether the idea was appropriate.
Okay, and to your point, that's a public policy question to the planning commission, and that's an appropriate question for you and them, and that's fine. So yeah, excellent. Okay.
Any other commissioners have anything to ask? No. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Oh, do you mind sending me? Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
Hey, anyone else? Yes, come on up.
Good evening. Thanks for having the hearing. And thanks, Mike, for letting us walk our dog still on the property. My name is Mike Fielner. I live at 66 Olalla Place, also in Olalla Acres, and we've submitted as a homeowners association. But I'd like to read it because there's some embellishments to this that I'd like to point out, especially given the testimony that was given so far. First thing I'd like to do is correct what I think was an error by staff in saying that it's flat. Anybody that doubts my interpretation is welcome to come to our property or any of the homeowners' property and see. Is it possible to get that map that we had, that you had, ma'am? Can we see your map again? It was publicly submitted, but I don't have it available to look on this. I have some relevant information I think that should be pointed out.
John.
I'm happy to pull up the map.
It was the same, I think it's the same map that was.
Yeah, Megan, do you want to you can share your screen. I'm happy to put a map up.
That's what I can't point out.
See there, yeah.
Yeah,
What, was it an aerial map?
it was
or-
this one right here. I just can't, I don't know how to get it up on the screen, so.
Yep, 1 second, please.
You got it.
Yep. Hold on, I need to share my screen so that the online panelists can also see it.
Yeah,
So 1 moment, please.
okay.
John, are you able to see this on your end?
Yes, that's excellent.
This is extremely helpful to really show what's going on the property.
Okay.
And I just to point out the difference in our Olalla Acres here, the difference, these are all of our lots right here. The difference between this and the back of our lots and down here where the salmon spawning creek is I would say just 150 feet in my property, and anybody's welcome to come look at our property. I welcome it actually. But in that being said, I just want to read what we submitted so that we can maybe embellish this. I won't take too long. In response to the notice of public hearing regarding the above reference case number, the Olalla Homeowners Association has reviewed the material sent. Public facilities, residential, okay. Well, the applicant's request currently is to convert the existing clubhouse into a single family dwelling, thereby necessitating the requested zone change, there is no mention nor copy of the applicant's proposed future development for the remainder of the two parcels, totaling 55.11 acres. Now, the 55 acres encompasses an easement that we have for our collective septic that goes on this side of the creek all the way out here and doubles back around where the creek bends. In other words, it's over here. So as well as what I believe to be an easement for our access road, which I think on this map, help me, is right here, Fairway Drive. So they're also, this is a salmon spawning creek, and it's also a creek that provides water for Georgia Pacific for their operation. And collectively, there is a number of setbacks and easements that will be encompassed in any future development in the rezoning. Now, I know that this will be covered later in permits and different processes that come with development, but it's I think fair to mention now. The homeowners association opposed to the zone change. We respectfully ask rural and said property potential impacts from larger development have been fully and more broadly evaluated and satisfactorily addressed. We respectfully ask that the issues listed below be part of that evaluation. Please note that none of these items were addressed in the staff report found online. The Olalla Acres, number one, the Olalla Acres Homeowners Association septic drain field, which extends into the area encompassing the proposed zone change. Two, future well development, which would be, for us, it's problematic in that this is much higher here than down here. All of our wells are down here where the creek, not next to the creek, but over in here at the bottom of our properties. So any affluent or water drainage or a watershed, conceivably is somewhat affected. So for us, this is also a critical area for sure. Janet's having problems with her well, as she mentioned. Other people have said the same thing to us. Septic field development and how they will affect homeowners association properties, which are located below the property's upper ridge line. 4, an impact study has been completed with all responsible agencies, e.g. Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, not mentioned here, Lincoln County, the people who do the permitting for building department, I guess, US EPA, US Department of Fish and Wildlife, which addresses the elk migration, the beaver habitat, the salmon habitat. We do have an elk population that comes there every year. It's part of their normal habitat run. We have lots of pictures. And salmon habitat in West Olalla, which runs through the area encompassing the proposed zone change. 5, all homeowners association easements on the two parcels. There wasn't any mention that I saw of the easements. Again, I might be premature in that. Access at Fairview Drive, ingress, egress, and the impact additional traffic will have on the care and maintenance of this roadway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, how the paved walking path has basically become a public domain will be addressed. And I don't say that lightly, because everybody I know in Toledo has been there and has walked and has used their dogs. And I realize it's private property, but it has been very valued by a lot of people for a very long time. So I just think it's worth mentioning here in this. And finally, allow the HOA adequate time to seek expert advice from real estate professionals, all kinds of other people, counsel, regarding the impact this development will have on the surrounding our homes. I mean, we all knew that the golf course sold, which I'm glad that you had an opportunity to buy. We found out in the paper that I found out in the paper it had been sold. As a matter of fact, there's one submission, I believe, by a gentleman who has offered to buy the property to keep it recreational if it's not viable as a golf course, which there are a number of people who believe it is viable, having closed during the end of COVID and the last management that were there's a lot to be said about whether or not it really was viable or not. It's all just being kind of assumed that it wasn't. I doubt it was made a profit the last couple of years, but the clubhouse has been closed, etc. In addition, the staff report states that the applicant asserts that operating the golf course as a business is no longer economically viable, since the recreational utility of the golf course is intrinsically tied to the financial sustainability. The applicant concludes that substantial change in the character of the area has occurred, yet no financial information regarding the viability of the golf course has been included in the report, nor any mention that this may be due to the fact that COVID basically adversely affected this property, as is the case with many businesses in the county. The report further states the applicant adversely affected further states that the applicant notes that other recreational activities, including other golf courses, are available throughout Lincoln County, yet does not acknowledge that Olalla Golf Course was the only recreational facility of this type within eastern Lincoln County and within distance of the city of Toledo. For some of us that live inland, it's a little bit different, as many people in here know. Finally, until the above issues can be adequately addressed and resolved, we would ask that the Planning Commission not approve the applicant's zone change until these matters can be resolved. Thank you for this opportunity to provide input in the matter and consideration of these interests. Olalla Acres Homeowners Association. I think in short for myself, and I think what we're asking here is that we were given the proper amount of notice. It was a holiday month. Many of us were away, and we haven't really been able to really, from a factual and organizationally, take a look at this greater picture. And I think that right now, at a minimum, we would ask for some more time before this decision be made, and some of these things be addressed. So thank you for your consideration.
Hold on for a moment. Are there any questions from commissioners? Scarlett, have you done mute, or can she unmute herself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering how it's assumed that there's public domain property on private property to adjoining property owners.
When you use the word domain, I'm not a legal expert, but I'm saying I think that you mean right to use.
No, you said that you thought that the pathway was a public domain to the folks that were using it.
I would say that over time and the amount of usage to the greater community that it's used, including Newport and Toledo High School, both their cross-country teams and their golf teams have used it. And over time, so many people, and it's a paved, you got to remember, there are some pretty steep parts of it. This is not a flat parcel by any means. I don't know what the legal definition of that is, but please come and look at it if you like. So for elderly people, for instance, or people with wheelchairs or whatnot, they can use this particular rural piece of property and this wildlife habitat because there is a paved, there is a paved road, I guess you would say. It was used for golf carts, but a truck could get on it, and all kinds of people have been using it for, how long has it been, Diana? 4 decades, or I don't know. No, not 4 decades, sorry, but at least until since 80, I guess it was, she's lived there for 4 decades, so, but, so excuse me. So I would say that, for the last 40 years, yeah, if it was a golf course made in 80, that gives, I forget the term, but after something's been used by a greater community, by a large part of the greater community, I believe it's, what is the term that makes it so that it's eminent domain? Is that what
I guess my concern is that this was always private property. It was used for public purposes, but it was still privately owned.
That is correct. That is correct. I think that there should be some consideration in terms of when you allow someone to use something for 4 decades, And a lot of people use it from all aspects of our community, including year round. There's tons of people that have walked their dogs like ourselves or come from all over, including just Olalla Road, but certainly Toledo. Everybody I've spoken to has been there and used that property for something. I think it's just worth noting. It's relevant to the value of the community. How much, and somebody said earlier today that we're not creating any more public spaces with all this growth that the council has said today, but we're also not, we're not creating any more open spaces. Most of the logging roads people used to take their bikes on or 4x are now gated across. It's actually kind of something that a lot of us talk about. Somebody disappeared there, but
It just got reshuffled.
oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah,
she's over
someone
here.
raised- Yeah, she.
Scarlett, you have a further question for?
I was just confused about public domain being classified on a piece of private property. And
Well,
I
you
didn't
know,
understand
yeah.
how that term could apply to private property in this case.
I don't think it does in any way from a legal standpoint that I know of, but I'm not an attorney, but I do know that there are areas that when the public had used something for, I mean, all the beachfront at one time was private. And, for instance, when something's used by that much of the community, it should take some consideration when rezoning it for this long, especially as open space, should I say, it is becoming less and less in our community, as well as the population growth that we certainly all know about.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't really answer it better than that. I don't know that I can't say that it's public domain. I mean.
And you answered my question. I appreciate it tremendously. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Scarlett. We have, Phil, I can see your hand is up as well. Can't see you, but if you unmute, we can hear your question. Commissioner Spalnick, you can go ahead and unmute. Thank you.
He was unmuted, but then, oh, here we go. Here we go.
Okay, go ahead, Phil.
The gentleman knows this, but is he aware that 92% of Lincoln County is public lands, and there's a lot of for recreation other than using somebody's private property?
I think
Comment I have.
accessibility is relevant in this question. It is incredibly accessible. And I think what's unique about it is the golf court, which is asphalt paved and in good condition, that really anybody from any walk of life, including handicapped people, can use. I don't know about the 92%. I don't know what all that would be. I would imagine a lot of that is forest and hillside land that would be thrown into the public land. But I certainly I'm not going to say it's the only place that you can go. There are plenty so thank you for your.
I don't see how all this contributes to the our comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance codes. What you're talking about with the salmon habitat and the use of the property by non-owners, I think out up at a subdivision meeting, zone changing. I don't think it has all that much relevance.
Okay.
Well, certainly, maybe not the public use in your view, but certainly having some more time for us to address and evaluate things. I mean, for instance, the staff's report that it's a flat piece of land, it really isn't. And I challenge anybody here to come walk the property with me or anybody, and even on the paved area and call it a flat piece of property. People complain about my driveway all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
I think,
So-
I'm sorry, his audio wasn't as clear, but I think the point he was making is that this hearing is the zone change.
I understand.
And if there was something further, if they wanted to put a house, there's other hearings and things of it. If they want to subdivide, that's another hearing. And then, you know, subsequent where they address all those things that.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do understand that. I think that
So
one,
it might be frustrating right now, but
yeah.
I can tell, but
I think one thing that alarmed us is that there was a lack of acknowledgement of any easements. Or really any of the environmental habitat that were listed in it whatsoever. I realize that perhaps this is not the right meeting for that. But it seemed relevant to bring up to us at our homeowners. Again, we weren't given I know it was the right time, the appropriate time, but over the holidays, it was very difficult for us to meet in that shorter period of time. So again, I think for right now, I would just like to ask for a little bit more time. We have to decide whether we want to seek counsel, et cetera, as a homeowner and even some other people on the road. So at that, I'll
okay, are there any more
Okay,
questions
thank
from
you.
commissioners? Okay, great, thank you so much. And are there any more? Come on up. And did you sign, you did sign in?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Somewhere there's a sign up sheet.
Did you accidentally take the signage sheet?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
It's okay.
That's all right.
Not very fancy.
I'm Diana Abbott. I live at 12 Olalla Place. So I do live within the middle of the golf course. I am opposed, but maybe from a variety of different reasons than I've heard spoken about today. After living there almost 45 years, I've seen the comings and the goings of the different owners of the golf course, who've always kept it open to the public. We've had such a variety of usages, from the high schools to, I don't know of a celebration that wasn't held there in the clubhouse over the time. Even the restaurant was very viable at one time for, as long as I kept in mind that they were doing, that it was Toledo and that it wasn't some fancy place. They did try that failed. Prices weren't in keeping with what most golfers want to do. From a real estate standpoint, because that's my line of work, or has been, I'm aware of what a 5-acre parcel would sell for there. I was a little surprised when I knew what the owner paid for the property and his desire to make those home sites, which isn't going to help Lincoln County's shortage of homes, because you might only get 9 sites out of it by the time you compete or complete the infrastructure that would have to be done to that property. The amount of money that would be spent for the infrastructure, he could spend that on bringing it back to a viable golf course, which again then serves the community not only of Toledo, but of Lincoln County in a multiple of different ways, from the high schools to tournaments, to weddings, to, I mean, they've had it all out there over the years. And it was very successful until the last few owners who were not hands-on. I think they maybe had some good intentions, but it fell into mismanagement. And when you start closing down the variables, such as a restaurant and different things, you do start to lose the profitability of what is there. But I don't see the profitability at all in dividing that property up into home sites that are what they are. If it remains public, it's public. Yes, you're right. I did not realize until tonight that it was, I knew it was privately owned, but I didn't realize how it was looked at. But they've always treated it for the public that could come there. There was camping for those out of the area, people who wanted to golf. And this benefits Lincoln County, brings in dollars. The town of Toledo that has nothing else like it for different functions. And yet many of the people who used that property were not necessarily golfers. Because again, the foresight of the owners were to see the benefit of having it. If you change it to 5-acre parcels, I believe the ability to even keep it as a golf course would not allow for a lot of the other many uses that it has had over the years that I've lived there. And yes, there's concern about, as was brought up, water and different things. I know that the costs that it cost us to just develop, to be able to drive across the creek was phenomenal to the homeowners. And I believe the one person that is in agreement with this or sent a letter, it lives over in Olalla Ridge, and they're in agreement as long as he comes over there and fixes their culvert, which is in need of being done. So I just think that I'd hate to see it changed from what it is when I think it services Lincoln County and the town of Toledo for multi-purposes that they'll lose if it goes R5.
Thank you. Commissioner Spolnick, you have a question or comment?
To the chair, I think these people need to. I can appreciate how they feel about the property having a zone change, but in me in any way with that doesn't speak to the ordinance standards.
Okay, you're cutting in and out a little bit, Phil, but I believe what you just were trying to get across is that all of those are concerns. However, for this particular hearing with the zone change, those aren't addressing the ordinances that we have to look at as commissioners. Is that what your comment? I think we're losing you, Phil. One more. Yeah, you've cut out almost completely now.
What you said.
Okay.
Can you say that one more time, Commissioner Spolnick?
That was correct.
Okay.
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
You characterized what he was saying correctly.
Yeah, okay, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you sign in? Megan?
Yes, you did. Okay, come on up.
Was this your piece of paper, sir, that you left up front? No, it was mine now.
Oh,
It was.
Well, she's signing in, Madam Chair. I've only heard you referred to as Madam Chair. What's your name?
Oh, it's Andra Bobbitt.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. We used to have little name tags, but
I
I don't know where
I don't know where they are. Doesn't matter.
We're out of practice, can you tell?
Yeah. We used to zoom in. Go ahead, state your name and address, please.
My name is Susan Herman. I live at 66 Olalla Place. I am a homeowner associated with the Olalla Acres Homeowners Association. First off, thank you for allowing us to give testimony this
Could
evening.
you use the microphone, please?
Yeah, put that, I think it projects back.
I think I'd like to address two issues. First, I'd like to talk a little bit more about that paved golf course path that goes through the parcels in question. Since that golf course has opened, the public has routinely used that path as a walking path. So it essentially has become public domain, and that it's been used for over 40 years as a walking path, and the private homeowner has made no move to close that off. Therefore, I would contend it has now converted to a public domain. Further, I'd like to address the one letter that you did receive that was in opposition, that was in support of this particular zoning change. And that is a letter from Joe and Mary Johnson, who were the developers of the Deer Meadow Lane subdivision. First, it noted that while they approve of the zone change, that approval is based on their request that the county maintain Deer Meadows Lane and install a needed culvert, as they believe the proposed zone change will use Deer Meadow Lane to access the proposed development property. I find this interesting that they base their approval on some type of exchange from the county. I find that rather interesting. Furthermore, their approval does not take into any consideration or even to address the concerns of any of the property owners in that area. And they don't even live in the area. They live out of state on top of it. Also, I find it rather disconcerting that an outside developer would come in and say they approve this property when they don't even live in this state anymore. And that they're also asking something in exchange for their approval from the county. Furthermore, asking that the county maintain their private road and also put in a culvert is questionable at best. Secondly, Fairview Drive is a private road and it goes to Olalla Acres. And it is maintained by the Olalla Acres Homeowners Association, or a certain portion of it. Therefore, we rightfully have concerns about traffic on that road and who's going to maintain that. So I think those are all issues that need to be addressed. While this meeting does not address future development, it does address zoning. And once this zoning has occurred, if it is approved, then the owner of the property is free to develop those properties. However, with certain caveats, certainly. However, I think it's prudent to first stop and think about how this could possibly affect that whole area. There has been no study, again, of the elk migration that goes through, the salmon spawning creek, and also the beaver habitat in the area. In addition to that, there's been no study about the water in that area. As one of the homeowners has stated, she's currently having problems with her. And all of us sit right in that line. If they build up above us, we're not sure how that's going to affect the aquifer up above us. We're also not sure how that's going to affect septic systems. We have septic systems up above us. We sit downhill with that. So I don't think it's prudent at this time, or I hope the county realizes it's not prudent at this time to approve this zoning request until these additional issues can be addressed. And those are the issues that were brought up by the HOA that should be brought into consideration prior to the approval. And again, I understand that is not part of this actual meeting itself. However, it seems to me that you're getting the cart in front of the horse if you approve this and really choosing to have a blind eye to these other issues that are at hand and will arise with the rezoning of this property. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, if there is a request, for a subdivision, believe you me, there's going to be a public hearing.
I understand that.
Absolutely, and all of those things will be addressed in another time. So I don't want you to think that we rubber stamp things at all. That, you know, it's multi-step process, and just because there's a zone change does not mean that they have a right to build a bunch of houses right off the bat at all.
Just
But there
to-
will eventually be residential development in that area. Why else food to have it changed to RR5?
Who knows? There's been crazier things that have happened, but I just wanted to make the point that we don't, the county and the planning commission doesn't just rubber stamp, we take our job seriously. So, but at this time, it is the zone change and the criteria that we have to address for that only. Are there any other commissioners that would like to ask a question or? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else that would like to come up and give some testimony against?
Can we maybe check back in with
Let's get back with our two people who are still with us.
our online folks?
Yes,
Larry Prophet, if you are wishing to speak, can you please raise your hand?
there's a little button at the bottom of the screen. The
Correct.
screen that you can raise your hand.
Okay, I'm not seeing a hand being raised at this time.
And Janae had already said that she submitted, they do have a letter in and she's just listening. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. Is that if we can do one last call if there's any attendees that would like to submit oral testimony for the public hearing, please
Any
raise your
Zoom.
hand. The Zoom, via Zoom to please raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay, I do not see any hands raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Okay, at this time, we will have rebuttal from the applicant, if there is no more. And you, yes or no?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant would just remind the commission that there are very specific considerations in the application. And while there are several concerns that can be appreciated, they are not all concerns that are relevant to the application before you. And with that being said, that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, any further questions from commissioners? No? Okay, at this time, does anyone request to have the record held open? Seeing none? Okay.
Anyone online?
Oh, online, sorry.
Thank you.
I used a hybrid.
Any attendees online, if you would like the record to be held open, please raise your hand.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Mr. Prophet or Ms. Millet? No? We're all good?
Madam Chair, just before you close the hearing, I just wanted to also let you know that we did receive correspondence from DLCD. They did acknowledge the application. They acknowledged that the Planning Commission was going to be having this hearing tonight. They didn't have any specific comments. They did want us to incorporate, if depending on the decision, address goal 5 and goal 7. I think we should talk about that after you've made your deliberations. It doesn't affect how you decide. It's just something we'll talk about after the fact. So just wanted to let you know that.
Okay. This time the record is closed and this will begin Planning Commission deliberation. Do we need to take? We're the only one. Does any of the commissioners need a 3-minute break or everyone good? Good. Okay. Okay, so where are we? Anyone want to lead off with feelings on this issue? Yes?
I have some input. Yes, and I don't know how lag.
Can't hear you, Liz.
You cut
I'm
out.
sorry, this is,
I know.
is it possible for me to type my what I want to say, can I type that in a chat?
You actually sound much better now.
Yeah, you sound fine, and I believe you cannot open it.
Okay. Okay. I'm just concerned about the cutting out. I am very concerned about trying to base this on a substantial change in character. For one thing, there's a 57% increase in our population that's over 65 in the last 10 years. To me, that spells that we should be seeing a greater demand for golf courses and a greater demand for recreation in the community. I don't think that saying because it wasn't economically viable doesn't equal a substantial change in character to me. I don't see it, and I may be missing something there, but it bothers me. It's because I see that somebody could make the same argument about a potentially miszoned area that is agricultural or timber conservation and say, I'm not making enough money on it. And I understand that, we have an underlying comprehensive plan that's R5. I get that. But I also feel like it's, there was when Dr. Gruber had this approved so many years ago, there was a reason why all that open space was included in his development. And I think we need to kind of be real careful when we tread through this substantial change in character, because I think that open space is still very important. That's just about all I have to say. Sorry.
I know you came through loud and clear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Where are you on this? Terry, you have anything you'd like to add?
Are you telling me I'm too quiet tonight?
You are very quiet tonight, Terry.
Having been out to Olalla several times and not playing golf, but attempting to get breakfast with a group, I'm familiar with the property, and if anybody was concerned if I was or was not familiar, I am a little bit. I've never walked the area or the course, but this is going the way of other golf courses around the nation, around the world in some cases, where there is a better land use than golf. One of the things that I see happening in the golfing world, particularly here on the coast, is that they're losing people. And I don't think there is the emphasis of providing playing locations, and the cost of playing is also going up. So I think it's appropriate that this property be reconsidered for better land use. And if the developer is looking at going on forward with, what is it, 5 or 8, whatever the number of the individual pieces of property they'd like to divide it up to, I think that'd be a good start. It's a beautiful area. And as my wife and I were talking tonight at dinner, it'd be a beautiful place to put a house if you can get the appropriate piece of property. So I'm leaning towards, I'm very strongly leaning towards approving the application.
All right. Phil? Hopefully.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear right now, so keep
Okay,
that.
I think the problem was I was using my ear pods and I had them turned on low. But anyway, okay, yeah, I agree with Terry. I've lived here in Lincoln County most of my life, and when I played golf, I played Olalla a couple of times, but I was never really impressed with the course. And I know it had a local following out of Toledo, just like our Crestview Hills does in Walport.
But like I know our course in Walport, it's not a moneymaker. The original or the owner a few years back sold half interest to a guy, a wealthier person. And I think he was using it for a tax write-off. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I don't know that for a fact. But when a business like that is not making money, that's the reason they come up for sale at a cheaper price. And so even though Liz doesn't think that's a substantial change, due to the zoning of public facilities, I do. And if you can't make a decent profit out of a business like that, and you're able to request a zone change to where you can get a return on your investment, I think that's a fair reason. And you know, I was here during our original zone change frenzy, and I cannot remember that Olalla Golf Course had a discussion when they put it into public facilities. There may have been, but I certainly don't remember it. And I remember a lot about that. Not so much right now, you know, I can't remember that there was a meeting tonight, but I remember back then real well. But anyway, so I have to agree with Terry. I think that property may be better suited if it can meet all the requirements of the development, you know, to be developed. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Phil. I thought for sure you would remember this from back then. Scarlett or Misty, either one of you have a comment where you're at?
Scarlett, go first.
Scarlett, go ahead.
You know, the only question I have, and I don't think it has that much to do with the zoning change, is the folks in Olalla Acres, with what year was that subdivision put together, Anno or John, roughly?
It looked like the plat was signed 1977, so right about there.
So, you know, the only question I've got is, do they have a good repair area in their easement, which is established? You know, that's the only, and again, that has little or nothing to do with the zoning change. But that would be my only concern for them. As far as walking areas and open areas, I totally appreciate having it out your front door, but I've walked the golf course. I've been there a number of times, and I've also walked the lake, and there's a lot of trails out there. So that's kind of how I feel.
Just to try and give you a technical answer, Scarlett, I'm not sure what they have for repair areas. It's not something we evaluated as part of the application. I'll just say it. It's not something that really needed to be evaluated, but I'm guessing based on the plat and year, they probably have, I mean, that was 77. So they were starting to get things pretty dialed in on environmental health regulations at that point. So I'd guess it's adequate, whatever it is. Whether they have repair areas or not, we don't know. So
that would be my own, and I'm well aware of the fact that it has little or nothing to do with the zone change, but it is a question and a concern that I would have on their part.
Thank you, Scarlett.
So, can you hear me? I don't have a microphone in my place. You know, as a business advisor in this county for over 15 years, it's interesting to me to think that if someone buys a particular piece of property, that they would be in any way legally required or even publicly required to maintain the use of that property in the same business for after they purchase it. You buy a restaurant, you don't have to keep it a restaurant, you can make it shopping center, whatever. And so to have a new owner come in and purchase this property and say you have to keep it the same thing and keep it a public golf course, park, anything else, I don't think is consistent with what we've always done or anything that we as a commission can require of someone. And that being said, I think that moving this to residential, I do not believe that one house will solve our residential problems in this county. But I don't see a reason why they should be required to keep it in the zoning that it is now. So I would think that this is a good move.
Yeah. I guess my feeling on this is, yes, I've gone to cross-country tournaments out there, and like I said, we have stuff stored out there. And we're all going to, we're hearing worst case scenario in what people's mind, worst case scenario, it's gonna be total blocked off high fences, everyone with their residents, but who's to say that down the road that it's not viable to subdivide like that? They want to do a planned unit development, doesn't give any more density, but maybe keeps some public access. We don't know, and we can't base our decision here on a zone change on that kind of future. It's just what's underlying, and it's interesting that it was originally zoned R5 by the county, but there was a golf course and all that history I think is relevant. And yes, I don't think you can force people to like keep Cosmos or the Montessori school or the Italian restaurant we have all loved, all of us who've been here a while. I mean, change is scary. So as much as it's a beautiful location, everything, I'm leaning towards recommending a zone change. Any more comments from any of the other commissioners before I call for a motion? Or I could entertain a motion at this time if everyone's spoken. And this is a recommendation for what is the technical, we are asking the board to.
Correct. After you take action tonight, that will be in the form of a recommendation and will go on to the Board of Commissioners. So there will be another hearing
Right.
at the Board of Commissioners on this very subject.
Correct. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, if you're asking for potential motion, it would be a motion to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to do whatever you determine. So.
Right. Deny or approve this application. That is correct. So at this time,
I think Terry, do I see
Terry,
a finger
you
up
have
there?
your hand up?
Well, I'll start this ball game off. I make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners for Lincoln County approval of the application for the zoning change. Hell bells, I had the number up in front of me and I lost it now.
File 02 ZC PC 22.
I second that.
And if
That's part of your motion.
Right.
You don't second it yet. You can't second.
I'll second
If-
this for you, Terry.
if I can, Madam Chair, if I can just throw something in there, you'll want to direct, typically what you would do is direct the applicant to prepare findings. And then what staff would do is review those findings, and those findings would then be, excuse me for a second, those findings would be presented to the Board of Commissioners. And yeah, so sorry, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, so
Put that in the motion.
okay, so the motion has been
Put that in the second.
and seconded. So at this time, let's call the roll and take a vote on Terry's motion.
Can you? Commissioner Lambert.
Approved.
Madam Chair,
Approved.
Commissioner Fox,
Deny.
thank you. Commissioner Spolman,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Kier,
I agree.
is that a yes or no?
That's a yes. That's a yes.
And Terry,
And Commissioner Bugenhagen,
That's a yes. Yay.
Thank you. The motion has passed.
Okay. So that is it for this portion of the public hearing. I thank you all for your testimony and for coming tonight. We're not completely done yet. We call for if there's any planning commission concerns. Their next meeting.
We are not aware of any.
Okay. And anyone else have any concerns? Scarlett, no, they just-
Happy holidays.
And happy holidays. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, so I just wanted to let you know that we will need to schedule a regular meeting for the Planning Commission to reconvene, review the proposed findings, and then sign those and then move those on to the Board of Commissioners. Staff will check with commissioners and make sure that availability, we'll work out availability of commissioners, but it sounds like Terry's heading off to South America and Antarctica here pretty soon. So we'll try and figure out when everybody's available and schedule it accordingly. We might be doing Zoom, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but not to Terry in Antarctica. I don't think so. But
Unless they get Zoom on the ship.
Yeah, there's some available, but not for something like this.
Okay.
Unless the county wants to pay for it.
yeah.
So, I think we have another hearing soon, or?
Well, when they get the findings, we have to have a meeting to approve that. It would be very brief.
Yeah, usually,
No, I don't leave the barn, so let's do it on Zoom.
We will always have a Zoom option so that you're not required to attend in person. It's just for whoever, to the best of our knowledge, as long as we're capable of offering a technology option.
Right.
We don't have to hold it, because participants can, the public can participate via Zoom still, like how we did at all our previous meetings, so.
I had a technology question about, the issue on this with the people just, listening in. Is there a way that someone not in this room can be on the chat in case somebody was saying, okay, I do want to speak, like it, or you can see their hand? I just want to make sure that we're not excluding, someone who's actually listening in. Because people are familiar with Zoom and the chat feature and things like that. And since we can't make that part of the record, but maybe we can use it on just the staff side to get them connected properly or unmuting themselves.
why don't we look into that? We also need to be, as you know, we need to be careful to have the proper order, right? So all of a sudden there isn't.
Right.
Right, somebody
Yeah, I don't
external,
want them
it's, because that's like having
Right.
back in the day where people just start talking in the
Right.
audience and contaminating basically the
Right.
purity of the discussion, right?
Yeah, but just to better address what tonight, because you can't make those people raise their hand or, whatever, but maybe they're trying chat and we just didn't know that. And I don't want to look at the chat.
But I think.
There has been a chat flag up since the beginning of the meeting.
But Terry, I think that's Phil's hand, actually. He's still up.
No,
So,
not the hand. It's the somebody that has put a message in chat. It will display how many messages are in chat for
Yeah.
participants to
There's
look at.
only 2 messages in the chat and it's from me and John.
Yeah.
Telling folks that if they're having.
Oh, back office conversation, huh?
Just giving people the opportunity to also view the webinar / hearing on our YouTube live stream. They can't, of course, raise their
Right.
hand and participate, but if they were just wishing to view it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Happy holidays to you too.
Did
So-
you guys schedule a hearing or a time to
No,
approve them? Okay, so
we will have to do that.
what, it should be the same 6 people, 6 commissioners who heard the evidence.
there's no requirement that you're not going to exclude anybody from the commission if they're a commissioner and they're present. They can make yeah, they can make a decision at that time whether they're gonna participate in the vote or anything like that, so.
Because Brian, the way that I'm just thinking out loud here to be responsive to your question, we've had it very often in the past when we've had absentees that commissioners have, especially now, this is all recorded. They can review the minutes, they can listen to the hearing and still participate.
As long as they make that, as long as they, that's clear, yeah.
Yeah.
We usually, because I've done that before.
Yeah.
And, said, I have listened to everything and I have all the material. I was just not at the meeting.
Saying it out loud so people in the public can understand that too, that
So I just haven't been introduced to you.
None of us have.
Gardner.
I'm sorry, that was an error on your fault.
Together, Commissioner.
Yeah. Brian, say something about yourself here.
The bio, or I mean, like, who are
This
you?
is not Jerry.
Jerry,
Not Jerry.
just so our planning commission understands, right? Jerry retired, which is great for him, I guess, but bad for us because we loved having him. As you know, I really enjoyed having Jerry be working with us as closely as he has, and hard to imagine us getting through all that goal 18 stuff without.
So you see Doug Holbrook on the window there too. Today was his first day.
Oh, welcome.
He will,
Hello.
So he's joining the county. He's going to be evolving out of his private practice and joining our legal team. So he's going to be Doug over time will be
Our new Jerry.
a new Jerry type person.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Commissioner Skolnick, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to apologize to the planning commission and the staff for being tardy today. And thank you, John and Megan, for reminding me. Anyway, it won't happen again. Maybe.
We were hoping.
Anyway, everybody have a great holiday.
No, before you go, Phil, I just want to point out, and Liz has been around this process for a long time. We are coming up. This new year will mark the 50th anniversary of Oregon's Land Use Plan, Senate Bill 100. And so, I have this hope, maybe, Phil, that you and some of the others, that we ought to find a time to ask you to maybe sit down with several of us and tape you guys that were here at the beginning of it all, to share some of your institutional knowledge in this 50th anniversary. I'd like to do that. So please think about several other people that also, I know Liz has been around forever too, that some of the people that you served with, like Mr. Adler years ago, and this and that, still around. So
yeah,
that would be, I think, those of us that have benefited by your leadership early on, because it must have been hard as hell in the early days to put all this together, and we've really been benefited over the years. So, and I think it's important that current Oregonians really understand what it took to pull all this together and how it happened. So I look forward to reaching out to you and others in the near future for Lincoln County to do its part to really document what it is you did and how you did it, and really provide some insights for future generations about how they're going to carry this torch forward.
Yeah, I would like to do that, but right now I'm sitting in the lap of Mauna Loa over on the Big Island, and and I'll be back. I'll be back about the middle of April, back on the coast, and
okay, we'll figure something out.
Okay,
even if it's remote, Phil, the new technology lets us do that.
I'll be here. You enjoy.
Maybe we'll just all have to come over to Hawaii and see you there, Phil.
Yeah. I was actually out on my pool when you called, so waiting for the sun to set. Yeah. But if you want to see something, go on. Just Google Mauna Loa eruption, and there's a million pictures, and It's happening right next to the main highway going from Kona to Hilo, and we haven't gone up there at night because they're getting 4,000 cars a night up there, but we were there the other day, and you could actually, through binoculars, you could see that vent number 3 spewing lava all over the place, but everybody's safe. It's just going. It's slowing down, but it's really the pictures are just phenomenal that people have posted. So, but have a great holiday, everybody, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Great, thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Meeting adjourned.
This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
My email.
Yes, and Tracy, you'd like to know when to have the findings?